Hello and welcome to the Fit and Free podcast. This is a podcast for women who want it all, to feel strong and confident in their bodies, as well as enjoying a sneaky mug on a Friday night. I'm an exercise physiologist and sports nutritionist, here to teach you how to achieve your body goals without food and your body controlling your life. So let's jump in. Hello you guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Fit and Free podcast. I am so excited because we are here in the Netherlands and I couldn't be more stoked about it. Oh my God. Just to set the scene, I am currently sitting in our new apartment in my trackies, all nice and cozy. I've got my candle lit, I've got my cup of tea next to me, looking out the window, and it looks freezing out there, all the people in their jackets, and I am absolutely frothing it. It's just such a different vibe to Bali, and I couldn't be happier to be here. This weekend, I'm so excited because we are going to our first Christmas market ever. We're driving over to Germany and I am so excited. I'm so excited for the glühwein, for the food, for the lights, for the ice skating, for the cozy vibes, the hot chocolate, all of the things. So if you're a Christmas girly, be sure to be following me on Instagram because the Christmas vibes are absolutely coming your way. So I'm super excited about that. So that's it for a live update. Let's jump into today's episode. So as you probably already know by the title, we're up to episode 6 of our fat loss series. And if you haven't listened to the first few episodes, I highly recommend going back and listening to these ones in order because each episode is kind of building on the next. And I'm just giving you everything that you guys need to know if your goal essentially is to drop body fat. And today's conversation, I'm very, very passionate about this conversation, is because I myself for so long made a massive mistake and I didn't get this right with my fat loss. And what we're talking about is setting realistic goals and tracking progress in the right way. Because for so long, I was just in this mindset of, I'm always trying to lose weight. I'm just going to eat less, be good, be restrictive. Or I would always constantly try restrictive diets, gym challenges, paleo, vegan, everything to try and change my body composition. And nothing ever really nothing ever was sustainable for me. And now when I reflect back on it, I'm like, of course it wasn't sustainable because what I was doing wasn't sustainable. The method that I was trying wasn't sustainable. And I really look back on it now and it's of course, I wasn't setting goals. I wasn't being intentional. I wasn't setting up a start and a finish. And I wasn't, creating a really rock solid plan. I was like, this is a good idea. I'll do this, try this, do it for a few weeks, then fail. So this conversation is going to be really, really, really important if you're actually really serious about losing fat and keeping it off for good. So let's jump into the episode. So first of all, I'm going to start off with some common mistakes that I see time and time again working as a nutritionist that people are making when it comes to tracking their progress and setting their own goals. Number one is they are just setting a vague goal. They're just saying things like, I just want to tone up or I just want to lose weight without actually defining specifics or creating actionable steps in order to achieve it. And that's kind of what I used to do. I always used to be Monday to Friday, I was being good. So for example, if Niels was to offer me a beer or something during the week, I'd be like, no, I'm not having that because I don't want the calories. I would just say no. Or another example is I would really crave chocolate during the week and I would be like, no, I can't have that because I'm being good. I'm trying to lose weight. So what I was doing essentially, I wasn't being strategic or I didn't have a plan. I was just being restrictive because I just set this vague goal of I just want to lose weight. And the problem with this is that essentially you're not owning your nutrition. You're not owning your numbers. And also, if you've been listening to a while, you know now that restriction fuels obsession. So just saying no to the beer or just saying no to the chocolate is not going to be an effective strategy, is because If you just say no all the time, there's going to be a moment where you're just going to give in and blow out. So therefore you're going to overeat and undo your progress and sabotage your goals. If you don't understand and learn how to incorporate these sort of foods within a fat loss phase, then you're not going to be able to break this like all or nothing cycle. So that's why it's really important to be really intentional. Like if your goal is to lose fat, is to set up your fat loss phase appropriately, that you can include all your foods and essentially be really strategic and be really intentional with setting that goal. The second mistake people make is they set unrealistic targets. Like, and I get it because we are so conditioned to fast, rapid weight loss. Like you see, we grew up, with dieting magazines being like, lose 10 kilos in 8 weeks. And then, also on social media, you see before and after photos and, some people, like you see these unrealistic before and after photos of like how much weight someone has dropped in 8 weeks. So subconsciously, it's like, well, if they're doing it, then why shouldn't I do it? So then it's literally setting so many people up for failure, because if we have these high expectations of like, yeah, I'm going to lose, 10 kilos in 8 weeks and you don't, that can really set you up for feeling like a failure, feeling like it's not working, falling into a self-sabotaging pattern of like, well, what's the point? It's not happening fast enough for me. I'm putting in all this effort and I've got nothing to show for it. And if you're there, like, why would you want to keep going if you're literally feeling like a failure and you feel like you're putting in this effort and nothing to show for it? The next mistake people make in this space is that they solely rely on the scale to measure their progress, ignoring other things of progress like photos, energy levels, strength improvement, and also your relationship with food, which is such a big one. Because if you're only relying on the scale is not a true measure of fat loss, because there's so many factors that influence the scale on a daily basis. Where you are in your menstrual cycle, your stress levels, how much sleep you have, how many carbohydrates you've eaten, strength training, how much salt you have eaten, all influence water retention in the body. And so therefore, that water retention is going to be reflected on the scale. So this is why it's not a good idea to use the scale as the main measure of progress, because the scale is going to fluctuate because of your body retaining water. So it's not going to give you an absolute true measure of how much fat you've lost because of all the factors that are influencing it. And that's why it's important not to use the scale as your main measure of progress, because it's going to fluctuate like every single day. The next mistake that I see people make is failing to track progress. And what I mean by that is tracking what they're eating. And I'm not necessarily saying inside MyFitnessPal. I mean like just tracking as in writing, keeping a food diary, like literally just writing down what you're eating. Also tracking your weight, tracking your photos, and most importantly, tracking your progress and what you're lifting in the gym. And why this is a mistake is because then essentially you're leaving no feedback loop to identify what's working and what's not working. Like at the end of the day, fat loss is it's a science experiment, right? Because that's how you create a calorie deficit is, you do have to be burning more than what you're eating. So if we're not tracking the variables in terms of our progress and what we're lifting, how much we're moving and how much we're eating, then we can't troubleshoot of why it's not working. That's why I really like to create a healthy relationship with numbers and data, because if we have that, then it can help us make some really solid decisions of what we need to do with our nutrition and exercise. Like for example, like if we set up a plan and, we see a little bit of fat loss, but then it plateaus. Okay, cool. Then we can look at how we're going with our nutrition, our exercise, our movement, our sleep, and we can see what's lacking. Maybe it's like, well, our steps have gone down to, 5,000 when they're supposed to be up at 10,000. Or maybe we are, consuming more calories than what we thought we were. So then there is the issue. If we don't have that tracking, we don't have that data, we can't see why it's not working. So that's why it's really important to track data in a really healthy, in a detached way, so that essentially is we can fix the issue if we run into one. So they're the most common mistakes that I see people make in this space. So now let's talk about what is the right way. What do we need to focus on, and how do we set all of this up? And this is something that I help all of my clients with inside the Fit and Fairy Academy Recon. The way that it works is we focus on 8-week blocks, and it's so goal focused, so that every 8-week block we focus on one specific goal, whether that's fat loss, whether that's recomping whilst maintaining your weight, whether that's building muscle. We hone in on that goal. We set up a plan, start to finish. We're being intentional. We know what we have to do. If we don't see a result, we can troubleshoot it because we're tracking the right metrics. So that essentially it's like, well, we can see why we're not losing weight, and then we know what we have to take responsibility for. So then essentially fat loss becomes like changing your body composition, it's going to work. There's no doubt about it. It's because we have a realistic plan. We're being intentional. We know what we have to focus on in order to be successful. And that's what you guys need to do, is you need to focus on a realistic and achievable goal and be intentional with your specific nutritional phase that you're in. So what do I mean by that? You need to pick a start date and you need to pick an end date, and you need to stick to it. So you need to make sure like it's the right time of the year for you to be able to stick to it. You need to make sure that you're committed. You need to make sure that you're, got a really solid relationship with food, so that, if you do go into a calorie deficit, again, you're going to be able to stick to it. So it's really, really important of just making sure that you're essentially creating a plan. It's just like, if you were to build a house, like you wouldn't just build a house and just say, I'm just going to build this. Okay, I'm just going to lose weight. I'm just going to restrict to lose weight. No, if you do that, what's going to happen? You're going to have cracks in the walls, leaks in the pipes. The house is going to look like absolute shit. So therefore, if piss poor planning equals piss poor results. The same with your body composition. So this is why you need to have a solid plan, pick your start, pick your end date, and so that you're going to set yourself up for success, and you know what you have to do every single day in order to be successful. And, if you don't have this solid plan, then like what's going to happen on a day when you're feeling not so motivated? You're probably not going to stick to it because you're not going to know what to do. In comparison, if you have a plan, you know exactly what you need to do, so you can just tick those boxes without even having to think about it. So what does a realistic goal really look like for fat loss? So for weight loss, a sustainable rate of weight loss is between 0.5 to 1% of your total body weight per week. So for example, if you are 50 kilos, then a good weight of loss is looking at about 0.25 to 0.5 kilos a week. If you have more weight to lose, then of course, because it's based off percentages, then it's looking like 0.5 to 1 kilo per week. And this is something that I see people get wrong all the time, is they create too big of a calorie deficit, and therefore their goal is not really realistic. And why this is an issue is because if you set up your calorie deficit too big, then you're not going to be able to stick to it. Maybe you'll be able to stick to it week 1, week 2, week 3, but then we'll get to a point where you're just like, I just can't handle this anymore. And if we set the calorie deficit too big as well, it can cause you to get stuck in a binge restrict cycle, which really negatively impacts your relationship with food and your ability to even trust yourself to stay in control around food, and your self-trust to be able to execute a calorie deficit. The other side of it as well is that your body does adapt to low calories. If you actually stick to the low calories for a period of time, the metabolic adaptation does actually occur. So again, your body adapts faster to the lower calories. So therefore you reach a plateau because the calories that once were a deficit are no longer a deficit. You adapt to it. So they then become your maintenance calories. So the calorie deficit isn't even working anymore. So that's why it's really, really, really important that when you are at the end of the day, when you're setting up a calorie deficit, you want to keep your calories as high as possible and movement as low as possible, but still be able to see a result. So you want to only slightly reduce your food and slightly increase your movement. And if those things create a calorie deficit, like you start dropping body fat, that's exactly where you want to start. Why? Because as you go on, metabolic adaptation occurs. So there's going to get to a point where what you were losing on stops working. And I am going to talk about that in detail next week, but just so you guys, just starting that conversation already, it's just something to be aware of when you're starting out your fat loss journey, is just making sure that you are setting yourself up for success at the beginning and making sure that you are setting a realistic goal. So what is a tangible takeaway on that? If I was you, I would be looking at your current body weight and assessing how much you want to lose and setting that as your goal weight, and then reverse engineering it and utilizing the parameters of 0.1 to 1% of your total body weight per week, and then working that out backwards. So say you want to lose 5 kilos. Okay, cool. Then you're going to work out the percentage of how much you're going to lose each week. Amazing. And then you're going to spread that over the amount of weeks that you need to get to that end goal weight. All right, sweet. Now we've set up our realistic goal. Now we're going to track our progress in the right way. So you're going to use various tools to measure your progress. You are going to use the scale, and I'm going to explain why. While yes, there is a lot of factors that influence the scale also gives us good data when we look at the averages over time. It does tell us if we are in a calorie deficit, if we are monitoring week to week to week to week losses. If we were to do just a one-off weigh-in 1 week to the next week, then that's not going to give us reliable data because of the amount of things that make the scale fluctuate. So that's why it's important to be measuring your weight at least 3 to 4 times minimum per week. So then we can take the average week 1 to week 2 and see the overall loss, gain, maintain. Because that data is going to be super solid in telling us on if our nutrition and exercise is actually working week to week to week. Then our main measure of fat loss is going to be our progress photos. Because if you are setting up your nutrition right and your exercise program right as well, it's like when you're in a calorie deficit, there is going to be an element of body recomping as well. So you will be building muscle and losing fat at the same time. If you are, making sure you're training right and eating the right things, you're going to be recomping. So that's why we don't only use the scale, we also use photos, because we're 3 weeks into the calorie deficit, the scale hasn't moved all that much, but we take our progress photos and we look way leaner. That's because we have built muscle and lost fat. So the scale doesn't actually show us that, but our photos will. So that's why it's really, really, really important to making sure that we're taking really solid photos, nice and clear, good light, same outfits, because they're going to be our main measure of progress during the fat loss phase. So you're going to take photos, you're going to utilize the scale, and you're going to completely detach from it. And the last thing that we're going to measure is also your progress in the gym. We're not making the exercise mistakes that I spoke about in one of the last episodes. We're not hammering cardio. We're not doing exercise to burn calories. Why? Because we're going to lose weight. We're going to lose fat and muscle. And then we're going to rebound as soon as we stop the calorie deficit. So with that being said, it's like you have to make sure that you're tracking your training, writing down what you're lifting every single week. Why? Because we need to apply progressive overload. And what does that mean? That means improving week to week. So if you're not tracking and writing down what you're lifting, how are you going to remember what you did the week before? How are you going to know what you have to do this week if you've got no idea what you did the week before? So that's why it's so important. And that's why all my clients have an app where they're writing down exactly how much they're lifting, what reps they're doing, so that they know the next week, they know what they have to improve on, they know what they have to beat, they know what they have to lift. And you guys have to start doing exactly the same thing. Then the last thing that's super, super important with this and setting up realistic goals is making sure you're giving yourself a really good time frame, not putting too much pressure on yourself. And at the same time, it's making sure that we're committed and holding ourselves accountable to our goals. Sometimes life does happen, right? And sometimes you do have to pivot. Sometimes we have more event than others. Sometimes things just, don't go as planned. So this is where we have to let go of the perfection mindset, and we really have to be flexible. And essentially, we also have to take responsibility when things don't go exactly the way that we want it. Because a big thing I see people do is like shit happens, someone goes over their calories, or they have this event and it really spirals them. It's like, oh my God, I've just fucked up. I've failed. I've undone all of my progress. What's the point? And they fall into this all or nothing self-sabotaging loop. So this is where we really have to build the mindset and be resilient during a fat loss phase. And during these moments, we have to utilize these moments as a lesson of what we need to improve on. But we also need to learn how to be adaptable and flexible and essentially be able to trust ourselves so that we don't fall into this all or nothing pattern. Like the all or nothing pattern, why does it happen? It's because essentially it's protecting us from feeling like we're a failure. So understanding that and understanding why that pattern is happening can really help you guys realize is that, it's not going to be perfect. You are going to make mistakes, but instead of saying into an effort, what you need to do is say, okay, cool. What do I need to learn from this? How do I need to step up? How do I need to be okay? How do I need to be flexible in this moment? How do I stop making it personal and mean something about myself? But instead, just take it as a little blip moment and learn from it. And then know next time you're in this same sort of situation, you've got two choices. You can fall back into that effort mentality, or you can be like, oh, I was here last week. I learned from this. I'm not going to allow this effort mentality. I'm just going to be like, okay, cool. I went over my calories a little bit. I'm not going to make it mean anything. Instead, I'm just going to get back on track and stick to my plan. And the more that you can practice this, the more likely you are going to be successful long term. So you guys, I really hope that brings into your awareness the importance of setting yourself up for success with setting yourself up with a structured plan. Remember, piss poor planning, piss poor results. So making sure if you are serious about losing fat is let's be intentional. Let's set up a plan. And if you need help with it, we are enrolling for January 6th, Fit and Free Academy Body Recomp. It is a 8-week program where we're going to help you lose the stubborn fat, tone up your body, all in a way where you don't have to track calories. Inside the program, you will get your personalized nutrition advice. So you know exactly what you need to eat, how much, and what you need to eat. You're also going to get an exercise program. So you know exactly how you need to show up with your exercise to train and sculpt your body. As well, I'm going to help you with your mindset. I'm going to help you build a resilient mindset so you can actually stay on plan, be consistent, and reach your goals in 2025. If you are interested in joining in on this amazing community inside the Fit and Free Academy and working with me and all my amazing ladies, then send me a DM on Instagram, say podcast, so I know that you're coming from here, and let's chat. Because I want you to win. I want you to feel confident within your body. I want you to be so freaking proud of yourself, and I would love to help you achieve that in 2025. So that's it from me, and I will see you guys in the next episode next week. Bye.